Hello viewers, welcome to the Editorial Analysis by Drishti IAS. In this section, we regularly take editorials from various newspapers and news portals for a better understanding of various issues happening in India and around the globe. Dear viewers, in this section, we first try to link the editorial with our UPSC syllabus. Then, we go analytical in order to understand some key points and at last some important concepts. Dear viewers, we truly hope that you like this initiative taken by Drishti IAS and your feedbacks are important for us. So kindly feel free to give your important feedbacks in the comment section. So without any further delay, let's commence our session.
Dear viewer, this video is available in Hindi as well. If you wish to watch it, please visit our Hindi YouTube channel, Dristhi IAS. For your convenience, the link for this video in Hindi has been provided in the description below.
Today's editorial is taken from The Hindu, published on 2nd February 2021. The title of today's editorial is Getting Back on Track. If we try to summarize today's editorial, we can see that in times that call for deft stewardship of the economy, this year's budget is a starting point. If we try to link today's editorial with our UPSC syllabus, we can link it with GS Paper 3, which has sections that include segments such as Indian economy and issues relating to planning and development. Some key points from today's editorial. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman made a brave effort to make good use of the lessons learned from the unprecedented global health crisis and ensuring economic setback to put lives and livelihood back on track. There is a great spending on healthcare and some fiscal push to undergird the struggling demand in the pandemic-hit economy. Now viewers, like we all know that the economic survey which was presented on last Friday, it also spoke about the idea of life and livelihood. The budget that was presented by the Finance Minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, it shows that she has definitely made a very brave effort to make a very good use of the lessons that we have learned from the unprecedented global health crisis in the form of corona pandemic. If we look deeper into the budget, we can definitely say that there has been a very huge spending on healthcare and also various other avenues where the economy needs to be focused upon. Some extra initiatives have been taken there as well. But this is no transformative budget that lives up to heightened expectations of a weary population waiting for manna from the government. Now viewers, if we speak overall about this budget, so we cannot say that this budget is something which has transformed the entire economy into something very new. Even today, one of the most important issues that the government has to face is the expectations of that particular population which has suffered a lot because of the corona pandemic, and they are expecting some kind of push from the government. However, government is doing whatever is possible from their end, yet there is a scope for a lot that is to be done from government's end. Now viewers, today's editorial analysis is basically about the union budget that was presented by Nirmala Sitharaman ji on Monday. So in this budget, we will actually speak about what are the various ideas, what are the various initiatives that the finance minister has actually proposed. How government will be planning to bring back the economy into its original shape that was before the corona pandemic. We will also speak about some of the new initiatives that the government is about to start this year, and most importantly, how the government actually will manage the after effect of the corona pandemic, due to which the population, almost every person in the economy, has actually suffered from. So viewers, before we move ahead, it is quite important for us to actually see, like if you look at the budget can be actually categorized into various areas. If you speak about some important key takeaway points, it is quite important to actually see that first of all, very importantly, that the budget which has been presented by the government, it actually shows that the government is willing to increase its expenditure. We have already seen in the economic survey that the government has planned a borrowing of around 12 lakh crore rupees. So the first idea about the budget is that the government is definitely willing to increase its expenditure. So the first and foremost thing is the capital expenditure for 2020-21. The government had a revised estimate of 4.39 lakh crore rupees. However, for 2021-22, the government has decided to increase this capital expenditure by almost 34.4%, and they are saying that this year the capital expenditure, this is the estimated one. So when we speak about the capital expenditure, so capital expenditure is that expenditure which is actually done on infrastructure. That, for example, government is actually creating avenues, government is creating roads, government is creating airports, railway stations. So what will happen? People will start using it. It will help people to gain some revenue. It will definitely boost up a lot, especially if we speak about the rural areas economy. So better road facility, better transportation facilities, all these infrastructural works will actually add to the income of the population. So the government has decided that the first step they are going to take is they are actually going to increase their capital expenditure. That is, they will make sure that they are actually focusing on infrastructure development. Now, the second most important thing about this year's budget is the idea of disinvestment. Now, Finance Minister has said that 2 public sector banks and 1 state-owned general insurance company will be disinvested. Now, very important to see, the government hasn't used the term privatization. They have said disinvestment. And there's one more thing which is to be understood here. There is a difference between general insurance company and a life insurance company. Life insurance, like LIC of India. Okay, so that's a life insurance. When we speak about general insurance company, so we are actually talking about insurance of car, insurance of house, etc. So one of the state-owned companies, right now we have 4 general insurance state-owned companies. They are New India Assurance. Number 2 is United India Insurance Corporation Limited. Number 3, the United Insurance Corporated Limited. And number 4, National Insurance Corporation Limited. So it has been said that one of the state-owned general insurance company will be put forward for disinvestment. Another very important initiative that the government has actually presented is that from now, the FDI in the insurance sector will be increased from 49% to 74%. This is quite important. Okay. The third thing, one of the most important again here, that the government has come up with an idea of bad bank. Now, don't go to the name. The name says bad bank, so it doesn't mean that the bank is bad. According to this idea of a bad bank, it is basically an asset reconstruction company. Now, what exactly this asset reconstruction company is going to do? We all know that there is a tremendous loss that the banks are suffering because of the NPAs. According to the Financial Stability Report that is produced by the Reserve Bank of India, it said that in the month of September 2020, the NPAs, they were around 7.5%. It has been said that by September 2021, the NPAs will increase to almost 13.5%. See, you can see almost touching the double figures. Now, the higher is the NPA, then definitely the banks are in a very sorry state. The banks are in a very poor state. So in order to resolve this issue of NPA, what the government has come up with is the idea of bad bank. Now, how actually this bad bank is going to work? I'll explain you with an example. For example, let's say SBI has, say, a total NPA of 500 crores. Now, this 500 crore is a complete loss. for SBI. Now, what this bad bank will do is, or SBI, what exactly will do is, SBI will actually sell this 500 crore to the bad bank. However, the bad banks will not pay the entire amount. Probably the bad banks will pay around 50 to 60%. That means they might pay around 250 or 300 crores. See, there was a situation when the SBI had a complete NPA of 500 crores. It wasn't getting anything. But now the bad bank has provided what? The bad bank has provided at least 50 or 60%. 50 or 60% of the total NPA. That means you are getting money from that place where it wasn't expected at all. And now, once the bad banks have these 500 crores NPA, it will be the responsibility of this asset reconstruction company to actually make sure that the NPAs are being recovered in an organized manner. So, this was with reference to the bad bank. Another very important takeaway is that the government has provided nothing this year for especially the working class, or you can say the middle class. However, the government has not increased any, you can say they haven't introduced any new tax slabs, or there is no increase in standard deduction. The only one point agenda of the government is that government is just want growth. Next, very important thing is the focus that the government has taken with reference to the health sector. Now, this is quite important. Now, the total allocations, or you can say the total expenditure that the government has incurred in the year 2020-2021, completely in the health sector, is around 94,452 crores. However, according to the budget presented for 2021-2022, the entire estimated amount for budget has been increased by almost 137%, and now the estimated amount is 2,23,846 crores. So see, you can directly observe here that government is all attending towards the issue of health. The government has also said that they are actually offering 35,000 crores only and only for COVID vaccination. Government has also set a capital expenditure in order to improve the hospital facilities, etc. Okay, so the capital expenditure towards various improved hospitals, all the benefits are there, all the machines, all the equipments are there, etc., etc. So government has set a capital expenditure of around 5,540 crore rupees, and again this amount is at least 35% more than previous year's budget estimate. One more thing that the government has focused upon is what exactly government has done is that we all know that there are various places where the government can earn some revenue, but government is not able to actually get that revenue. Government so far, whether we speak about the NDA government or the UPA government or the NDA government before that, all of the governments have not done anything substantial. Now, there are various resources through which government can definitely earn money. All those resources are absolutely vacant. Nothing has been done over all those resources. However, if those resources are used in a proper manner, then we can definitely have a tremendous amount of revenue from all those resources. Now, this idea has been taken into the National Infrastructure Pipeline, about which we will discuss in the later half of the video. Then, government has come up with several highway projects. Government has said that in Tamil Nadu, there will be a construction of around 3,500 kilometers of road, and it will cost around 1.03 lakh crore rupees. Similarly, in Bengal, 675 kilometers of construction will be done, and the total cost that will be incurred is around 25,000 crores. In Kerala, 1,100 kilometers, and the cost that has been estimated is 65,000 crores. And at last, Assam, a construction of 1,300 kilometers will be done with a cost incurring of 34,000 crore rupees. However, this is one thing quite clear, because all these states will be having election this year in the month of April and May. So yeah, the government has taken this strategy in order to increase its vote bank in these states. Now, the next important thing that the government has said is that government is actually expecting 1,75,000 crores from the disinvestment process. Now, like I told you, last year the government estimated that the total amount which they are expecting from disinvestments was around 2.1 lakh crore. However, the amount that government could recover was only lying somewhere between 15,000 crores approximately. So this year, government is quite hopeful that they will be collecting at least 1,75,000 crore rupees only and only from disinvestment. Then, if we speak with reference to the fiscal deficit which the government has incurred, so estimated fiscal deficit for 2020-2021 by the end of the financial year is going to be around 9.5%. However, government has actually said that the fiscal deficit for 2021-22 will be somewhere around 6.7% or 6.7 to 6.8%. Now, viewers, what exactly fiscal deficit is? Like I said, the work that government has to actually do for its people. Growth, the factor of growth is very much important here. So that's the reason the fiscal deficit actually comes. Now we can see that for 2020-2021, the fiscal deficit is around 9.5%. Why this fiscal deficit has increased by such a huge number? The reasons are very simple. Because in the last year, if we speak about numbers, if we speak about data, it has been said that of all the subsidies that has been provided to all the people, 41%, such a huge amount, 41% subsidy has been provided on food items. And we all know that for almost 9 months, Modi government has actually provided food items to almost 80 crore population of the country. So when government is spending, so definitely there is no other source from where the source will not increase suddenly. You have to work, you have to create an infrastructure, only then you can expect the source to give you some revenue. But unless you are not getting any revenue, government has got its job. And same was done by the government of India as well. And that's the reason we can say that the fiscal deficit has actually increased to 9.5%. However, the government believes that this year they will keep this fiscal deficit lower to almost 6.7 to 6.8%. So viewers, these are some of the important areas where the government has actually decided to work upon. Okay, so now we can come in detail with reference to what exactly we have in this year's budget. A lot could have been done to address the chronic underinvestment in India's public health infrastructure by appreciably raising expenditure. And that is absolutely true. The Union Budget for 2021-2022 presented to Parliament on Monday instead reveals an estimated health outlay of 74,602 crores, almost 10% lower than the revised estimate of 82,445 crore earmarked for health spending in the current fiscal year. The minister, however, claimed a 137% increase in the budgetary outlay on health and well-being by including a one-time expenditure of 35,000 crores set aside for COVID-19 vaccination program. I have already discussed this thing with you. I have also told you that the revised estimate for 2021 was around 94,450 crore, specially dedicated completely towards health. And this number has been increased by almost 137%. And now it is expected that the government will be spending around 2,23,846 crores. Also, 60,000 crore budgeted for the Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation, as well as the Finance Commission's grant for both water and sanitation and health, totaling to almost 50,000 crore. So if you take a complete sum of all these numbers, the value that you will achieve is this. While it is an inarguable fact that the availability of vaccines, ensuring universal access to safe drinking water, proper sanitation, and adequate nutrition are all key in determining a population's well-being and abiding trust on creating and maintaining a sizably more extensive public health infrastructure needed a substantially higher outlay on the standalone head. In fact, the economic survey had eloquently made the case for providing a massive boost to the health spending, which it reasoned would serve as a direct means to raising overall economic output by reducing the economic burden of illness. Now, like I said, that government has actually focused upon the target area of health. Now, the government has said that they will be putting efforts in order to develop a proper health infrastructure. It also has said that it will actually, by developing a proper infrastructure, they will also bring down the expenditure that is done by the population to almost 35% of what they actually spend today. Now, in order to reach to such a situation, it is quite important that government should actually start working towards these ideas, these areas of creating and developing health infrastructure. To her credit, the minister did announce that the government intends to introduce a new centrally sponsored scheme, Pradhanmantri SWAST Yojana, to develop primary, secondary and tertiary care capacities over the next 6 years at an estimated cost of around 64,180 crores. Now, the finance minister also came up with a centrally sponsored scheme known as Pradhanmantri SWAST Yojana, and under this particular scheme, government will be focusing on the development of primary, secondary and tertiary care capacities in the duration of next 6 years. The initial fund that has been allocated is 64,180 crore rupees for this particular project. How exactly this scheme pans out in terms of strengthening the beleaguered public health infrastructure in the remote and far-flung corners could well determine how prepared India is for the next unforeseen health emergency. A sizable fiscal stimulus to reinvigorate consumption demand could have gone a long way in completing the recovery. Now, has definitely come up with an idea such as the Atmanirbhar Swasth Bharat Yojana, but we have to actually see that how actually this particular scheme, it works and it actually provides support and builds an infrastructure, especially in the remote and the far-flung areas of the country. If done properly, only and only if done properly, and the remote areas are also getting the same access to the medical facilities which people have in the urban areas, it will actually show that how much prepared India is exactly for the next unforeseen health emergency situation. While the revised estimate for the current financial year took a fiscal deficit of 9.5% of GDP, I have told you the estimated is 9.5 on account of expenditure surging to 34.5 lakh crore. The minister has opted for a mere 33,000 crore increase in the overall expenditure outlay in her budget estimates for the next fiscal. Here again, she has pointed to the 5.54 lakh crores set aside for capital expenditure to contend a 34.5% increase in outlay over the current year's budget estimate. I have also told you that for last year, we have the data which says that the budget estimates capital expenditure was around 4.39 lakh crore rupees. Okay, and that has been increased by almost 34.5%. And for the present 2021-2022 fiscal year, it is being said that there will be a capital expenditure of around 5.54 lakh crore rupees. Far from being an expansionary budget, Ms. Sitharaman has opted to contain overall spending so as to rein in the fiscal deficit to 6.8% in the coming fiscal itself. I've discussed this thing in the major takeaways. I told you that the fiscal deficit for 2020-2021 is expected to be around 9.5%, whereas for 2021-2022, it is expected to be at around 6.8%. The country cannot afford a premature scaling down of fiscal support at a time of rising inequality. Strapped as the government is for funds in the wake of the year's economic contraction denting its revenue receipt, the budget does make bold to set out a few avenues for resource mobilization. Now, with the minister announcing her resolve to complete the pandemic-delayed strategic stake sale in several state-owned companies in the coming fiscal, the budget has accounted for 1.75 lakh crore in capital receipt through disinvestment. I discussed this thing in the major key takeaway points that government is actually planning to gain at least 1.75 lakh crore rupees from disinvestment. She also proposes to privatize 2 more public sector bank and a general insurer in 2021-2022 and has committed to ensuring that the necessary legislative amendments to enable the LIC's IPO are introduced in the current session of Parliament. Like we all know that soon we will see that LIC will be launching its IPO. So she has given a complete nod and the process is ongoing. The budget also throws open the doors for increased FDI in insurance. The foreign ownership limit would be raised to 74% after amendments to the Insurance Act of 1938. I told you before that now the foreign owned organizations, they can definitely come in reference to the insurance industry, and now they can have an FDI limit of up to 74%. It will be done after amending the Insurance Act of 1938. Still, it remains to be seen how eager overseas insurance may be to raise their stakes, given the government's intention to make its proposal politically acceptable by including safeguards such as mandating that a majority of board positions and key management personals be restricted to resident Indians and requiring the companies to set aside a specified percentage of profit as general reserve. Also on the block for possible sale or lease through concessions are the state-owned undertaking land assets that the government intend to monetize. Now, like I told you about the national infrastructure pipeline, what exactly the government will do? Now, government will actually try to use various state-owned undertakings as assets, and government wants to monetize these assets under the National Infrastructure Pipeline project. In finding the capital for its National Infrastructure Pipeline, the budget proposes an asset monetization pipeline. Asset monetization. Government has got some asset. The government will either rent it or put it on lease or will sell it. And that's how the government will earn revenue from some of the assets which as of now are of no importance or are not being used to the 100% ability of those assets. The aggressive stance on privatization notwithstanding, the government is still likely to face an uphill task in achieving its ambitious disinvestment goal, given that private investment is still anemic. See, in India, and it's not bad, I'm not saying anything that I'm pro privatization or I'm pro disinvestment, or similarly, I'm not saying anything that I'm anti disinvestment or anti privatization. But government will definitely find it very difficult in order to achieve its ambitious disinvestment goal. Because government, if comes up with any such idea, so the various unions, various organizations that are present there, they will definitely, including the opposition, they completely will not be in the favor of the disinvestment procedure. So, the idea of disinvestment is going to be a Herculean task for the Indian government. Mrs. Sitharaman has also embarked on creating a bad bank for dealing with the pile of stressed and bad bank loans. I have also discussed this thing with you in the start, that the issue of bad banks will be with reference to the NPAs various banks are having right now. The budget proposes establishing both an asset reconstruction company and an asset management company that would consolidate and take over existing stressed debt and then help dispose of the assets. I told you the bad bank that we are talking about, it will be a kind of an asset reconstruction company and also an asset management company. And the whole idea will be to consolidate and take over the stress of the debt which the various banks have, and later on will make sure that how exactly that entire recovery is done. It is these plans to privatize two state-run banks and also undertake a cleanup of the stress assets that have prompted the minister to set aside just 20,000 crores to recapitalize the remaining public bank. The finance minister has provided a total stimulus of around 20,000 crores so that the public banks can have some help with reference to their capital list. Ultimately, though, given its effort to mobilize resources without tweaking direct taxes at a time when several states are headed to the polls, the government has had little opinion but to tap the market for debt. We all know that the government has not increased or changed anything with a reference to the direct taxes. So yes, this is going to be one point where the population will actually think, the public will definitely will think about how the government has performed. See, because whenever the government is losing out money or it has to spend a lot on subsidies, then government actually seeks out various ways through which it can generate revenue for itself. However, in this year's budget, we haven't seen any such new slab or any new standard deduction that has been introduced by the government of India. With the budget positing a gross market borrowing of 12 lakh crores, the government will end up getting 36 paise of every rupee it nets from borrowing and other liability, an 80% increase. I told you in the beginning that the government has decided to take a borrowing of around 12 lakh crore rupees. So when each and every liability has been taken aside, the government will actually get 36 paisa for every 1 rupee which they are borrowing. Such is the liability on the shoulders of the government. Given these challenges, the budget can only be the starting point for a year that calls for deft stewardship of the economy. Now, it will be too early to say how exactly this budget performs, but yes, there are various avenues which have been covered very clearly by the government of India, and both the Prime Minister and Nirmala Sitharamanji are to be congratulated for such a tedious task. Now it is the responsibility of the government that it should make sure that company once again is on the road of recovery. And it is quite important that each and every one of us should collectively come together and support the government in achieving this particular milestone, which is quite important for the government as of now. So viewers, this was with reference to today's analysis. Now, I would call it as our budget analysis. A question that can be framed with reference to today's editorial is, cite the key aspects of the Union Budget 2021. What, according to you, are the various lessons learned by the government from last year's pandemic situation? What, according to you, are the various areas where government needs to put more attention? So viewers, I hope you liked today's editorial analysis. Thank you very much.